story. And most of you have read it, I'm sure. But it's just so interesting how God kind of gives us a fresh word when we just sit quietly before Him and say, Lord, I know the story. And you begin to read, and all of a sudden you get things that you just had never really thought about before. So I'm just going to give you a little history real quick rather than reading it from the Bible, and then we're going to actually go to the Word in just a few minutes. But before we do that, I told Lindsay, I said, Lindsay, if you would, put some pictures up here. How many of you all can relate to this? Especially after the meal that we just ate. I thought, okay, that is right there. But I've been pretty thick for quite some time, so I'm going to change. Put the next one up there. Okay, this is for all of us when we go home today. We are not wearing anything other than the armor of God. That's why we're going to weigh a little heavy, right? Okay, and put the last one up there. Okay, this is one of my favorite shows, but Jed, have you ever in all your days seen people act like they are now? And Granny, I believe the Lord is whittling the church down to the good wood, because He's about to come get His bride. And you know what? That's the truth. If anything has happened during this pandemic, I really believe that's what's happened. You know, even if your church closed for a while, we get it. But I think the Lord is looking for a bride that is ready. And what you did when you were home, if you closed, I know, spending that extra time with just you and the Lord, it's just precious. And I think the Lord is looking for people who are truly dedicated to Him. They really want to make a difference in their daily life and their jobs. So anyway, we're going to go to the book of Esther. And I'm going to just kind of give you a little bit of history. But when we get to the book of Esther, first of all, if you look at this book, God is never mentioned. You know, that's interesting, isn't it? God is never mentioned in this book. However, you're going to see Him all through it. However, Xerxes, who is the king, his name is mentioned 175 times. Now, that's interesting. And we're going to talk about Esther. The two main characters in the book of Esther are Esther and Mordecai. Esther was an orphan. Whenever the Jews were carried away to Babylon, their ancestors were some of the very ones who in the Exodus out of Egypt 1,000 years later or earlier, their family ancestors were some of the very ones that came out of Egypt. And so, again, you know, you look at who Esther and Mordecai are. Her parents died. She was an orphan. Mordecai, her cousin, took her in and raised her. But now, when we listen, or we start in the book of Esther, they're in Persia. Okay, so 50 years before this story happens, I think his name was King Cyrus the Great. He told the Jewish people they could go back home, they could rebuild their Jerusalem, and they could rebuild their temple. So this is the question I have for all of you, because this is where I'm kind of at with this story. Why was Mordecai and Esther still in Persia? I mean, I have every day on the way to school, I would say, Lord, give me some insight here. They were told they could go back. Why are they still there? So just think about that as you hear this story. Okay, so anyway, in chapter 1, the king throws a big party. But really it's a summit, and it lasted for 6 months. And what he was doing, he, in his heart, wanted to overtake Greece more than anything. So what he did was he had all the dignitaries, all the military men come with their wives, and for 6 months they strategized. Okay, what can we do to overtake the Greek armies? So anyway, at the end of this 6-month summit, is what I'm going to call it, they had a 7-day party. And I mean a party. It was a drunk fest is what it was. I mean, it really was. And so anyway, the last day it said the king's heart was very merry with wine. So in other words, they had really enjoyed themselves. He summons his wife, the queen, Vashti. She's very beautiful. And he calls and he wants her to come in and he wants to put her on show. She's kind of like one of those trophy wives. You know, he just wants her when he summons her. And so anyway, she was already with her, but women, they were having their own gathering. And he asked her to come. And he actually sent word for her to come, and she refused. So you can imagine the humiliation. You know, you wonder what was going on in her mind. And again, for the last few weeks, I've been kind of thinking about this story. But you know, again, she knew all of them were drunk. And I'm sure she didn't want to just go in there and be paraded, you know, in front of all these men. What would they say? What would they do? So again, I have looked at her position, and I thought I probably would have done the same thing. But it made the king livid. He said, what are we going to do? Well, all these men with him said, you need to do something with your wife because we're going to have another women's liberation movement here. You better get control of your wife. So they decided that she needed to be cast out of the palace. In other words, she was no longer going to be the queen. So for the next few years, I think it was the next 4 years, he is actually wrapped up, this King Xerxes is wrapped up in this war with the Grecian people. And so he's preoccupied with that. 2 years later, he comes back and he's livid because, again, they're not winning. And he needs a distraction. So they decide they're going to find a new queen. Again, you all read this for yourself because I'm going really fast. I have we were just going to read a lot of this in Scripture, but we're just going to kind of go through it. But anyway, so for the next couple of years, they decided we're going to have to find a king and new wife. They brought in, and this is what I want everybody to look. Chapter 2, I'm going to just read this because it kind of tickled me the way he said it. Chapter 2, verses 1 through 4. I'm just going to read it real fast. It says, hang on. After these things, when the wrath of the king, and I'm going to call him Xerxes, he has another name, but subsided, he remembered Vashti, what she had done, and what had been decreed against her. Then the king's servants who attended him said, let beautiful young virgins be sought for the king, and let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of the kingdom, that they may gather all the beautiful young virgins to Shushan, the citadel, into the women's quarters under the custody of Haggai, the king's eunuch, custodian of the women. And let beauty preparations be given them. Then let the young woman who pleases the king be queen instead of Vashti. This thing pleased the king. Okay, we're going to bring 400 virgins into you. For a year, they're going to do these beautification treatments. They've got to smell the right way and look the right way, and they've got to have all of their education on how to act in the court. And so I just had to kind of laugh about that. I thought, okay, 400 virgins plus all of his concubines, and all they could say was, this pleased the king. Well, I'm sure it did. It's going to be a busy man. But anyway, for a year, and you think a year, that's a long time for someone to get beautiful. But anyway, they brought the most beautiful virgins in, and guess who was chosen? Esther. And Mordecai and her are living in Persia. And so again, I was just going, but God, why are they still there? Why are they still there? Why didn't they go to their homeland? So anyway, Esther is brought. It doesn't say she came willingly. It said she was brought. So I think they rounded up the most beautiful virgins. They brought her in, and I want to tell you what her name means because I think it's interesting. When you're in a foreign land, remember Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, their name was changed. Well, anyway, her name was changed to Esther, which is, this is what they think, has something to do with the goddess Ishtar. And so again, her name is changed because she's in a foreign country and she has to take on a foreign name. So anyway, I thought that was interesting, but that means star. So even in a foreign land, here's Esther, more beautiful, than any, and she's taken, and I just think, what's going through her mind? This is not what she asked to do. She was taken. But anyway, from the very beginning, her name there means a star. She was lovely and beautiful. As a matter of fact, she was noticeably beautiful because, again, they chose her as one of the ones to come. At the end of the 12 months, you have one shot. They take you in for a night with the king. And the woman who pleases the king most will be chosen as the queen. Well, guess what? After her night with the king, it pleased the king, and he chose her to be his queen. As a matter of fact, it sounds to me like, and you read it, but it sounds to me like he fell head over heels for her. So again, here's Mordecai, and it also says, whenever we're kind of reading this, Mordecai was sitting in the gate of the king, the palace. So again, Mordecai must have had some kind of position there. I don't know what it doesn't really say, but he must have had some kind of position. So I asked the Lord, is that why they didn't go back? Maybe Mordecai had a position there. Maybe there was, a reason that he chose to stay. And so then, as I was asking the Lord this, I just felt the Lord say, are you judging them? I was like, well, I'm not trying to. I just want to know what's going on. But many times we can get comfortable comfortable being bound. Because see, here's these children of Israel, these Jews who are in this foreign country, but something kept them there. You know, I don't know exactly what it was, but something kept them there. And then, as I begin to just continue to read and study, the thing is the Lord will use us no matter where we are. You know, many times we like to stay where we're most comfortable. The Lord offers us freedom, but we're kind of comfortable. And we just continue to stay. Now, I am not judging Mordecai. I'm not. Because I don't know what the situation was, and it really doesn't say. But it does sound like he has a position. Now, whether that was, maybe it came after, I don't think it was after Esther actually became queen. Because it was talking about him sitting in the gates. So that's where a lot of the business was done. I didn't realize that, but when we went to Israel, they told us that a lot of the men, prominent men, would sit in the gate of the palace there and do their business. So anyway, he had some kind of clout. Now, during this time, Mordecai told Esther, don't tell him that you're a Jew. So anyway, it goes on that, you know, she's the queen. Well, Mordecai checks on Esther. And you all read this because, again, I'm just kind of summing this up. But Mordecai goes and checks on Esther quite often, and he's in the gates of the palace. One day he overhears these two eunuchs who had like first-hand privileges with the king. I think it said that they guarded the king's quarters. But anyway, Mordecai overheard these two eunuchs talking. They were going to kill the king. It doesn't say why, and again, just imagine. I means, was it because of what he did to Vashti? I don't know. Was there something else that made him mad? It's just kind of fun to think about what was going on. But anyway, so Mordecai gets word to Esther. And he says that they're going to kill the king, and you need to tell the king. So she did. Well, sure enough, they do an investigation, and they was plotting to kill the king. So Mordecai saved the king's life. Now, you would think that they would throw in some kind of a party. I mean, it's a big deal to save a king's life. But they really didn't honor him that much whenever he did that. I mean, I'm sure that they, maybe thanked him, but I don't really know that they did anything special because later on, they're going to do something special. But in steps this man, and his name was Haman. And what you have to know is Haman was a Gagite. Now, how would you like to be called an Agagite? I thought that's quite a title. But when the Jewish people came out of Egypt 1,000 years earlier, the first people to attack them, and any of you that have been in Aaron's class, I know you know this, was the Amalekites. Remember them? Amalekites, I think is how you say it. Anyway, and so I'm just going to kind of go through this quickly, but this Agagite was a king over the Amalekites. So whenever they attacked the Jews, it made God very angry, and he cursed them. He said, you will be completely annihilated. So anyway, through the years, there were opportunities. King Saul, I believe, was one of them that had the opportunity to kill this king, and he didn't. So later on, and you may remember this story, but in 1 Samuel, I believe, and I wrote it down, but 1 Samuel steps on the scene. Saul did not do what God told him to do. So who remembers what Samuel did to this Agagite king? You remember what he did? He chopped him into pieces. Yeah, that's how he got rid of him. He literally chopped him into pieces. So I want you to think about this. Here are these two Jewish people in the land of Persia. And then there is this man, Haman, yeah. Anyway, he is of this tribe that goes all the way back to the very first people who attacked the Jews. So there's a lot of animosity between them. But Hamar was given like one of the highest honors. He was put over, like all the people, they had to bow to him. Now remember at the time, there was kind of this secret about them being a Jew. But all of a sudden, all these people are supposed to bow to this Haman, and Mordecai says, no, I will not do it. This is another thing the Lord kind of showed me. You know, sometimes we forget who we belong to. We get so comfortable in the world. I'm just going to say this Persian country was the world. We get so comfortable in the world, we forget who we belong to. And I think at this time, God was testing Mordecai. Are you going to stand for me, or are you just going to kind of let this little secret slide? And Mordecai would not. He knew his family tree as well as Haman knew his. And he was like, I will not bow to him because I know who he is. I know where he came from. And that the Jewish people are God's chosen people. We will not bow to him. Well, this made Haman furious. And it also says, and like I said, I don't even know where my notes are, but it talks about how Mordecai told the men in the gates he was a Jew. So now it's starting to come out that he's Jewish. So anyway, Haman heard this, and he was furious. Okay, so he knows this guy's a Jew, and he should be bowing to him. I mean, can you just see this all come back? Okay, now I'm going to get revenge for, what God did to my people. So anyway, Mordecai will not bow. So, that you go on through, I think if you would, maybe, do you have your Bibles? You might go ahead and look at chapter 3, because that's where Haman was kind of elevated to his position. And Haman decided, okay, I know what I'm going to do. I can't just kill Mordecai, because there's enough Jewish people, they'll come kill me. What we need to do is just kill all the Jews. Okay, so this is the other thing the Lord kind of showed me. There must have been quite a population still there. When you think about it, there were several that stayed in Persia, and they, of course, had children. And so anyway, there's several there, because he was afraid that if he killed Mordecai, they'd all come against him. So he says, let's just annihilate all the Jews. So he comes up with this plan. Okay, so go into chapter 4, and we're going to start there, because this is where everything's going to. And again, I know I've rushed through things, but I just want you to hear this. So anyway, word gets back to, first of all, the king sends out a decree. He stamps everything with his ring, his signet, that yes, this is going to happen. Or Haman goes back and says, I think we just need to kill all the Jews. And this is the reason why. They have a lot of riches. And he said, if we kill all the Jews, we can take in all their riches. So I thought, here are the Jewish people thriving in a foreign land. This is not the first time this has happened. Think back in history at all the ones who have been in foreign countries who have risen to power. Well, here we go. This is the same type story. So anyway, he says, let's annihilate the Jews. So the king makes this decree. They send out all the paperwork to all the different places saying, okay, this is what's going to happen. So Haman is trying to decide when's the best time to do it. Oh, he was so excited. Finally, we're going to get revenge on these Jewish people that have caused us so much trouble. So he goes to all of his astrologers, and he says, when would be the best time to do it? So, in chapter 4, I want us to look at verses 10 through 14. If you don't have your Bible, I'm just going to read this. It says, Then Esther spoke to Hathach and gave him a command to Mordecai. First of all, Mordecai sends a message into Esther and says, do you hear what's happening? He rent his clothes. So here Esther, she even sends clothes out to him to put these clothes on. And he won't. He's so upset about what's going to happen. So in verse 10 it says, Then Esther spoke to Hathach and gave him a command to Mordecai. All the king's servants and all the people of the king's provinces know that any man or woman who goes into the inner court, I'm going to go back. Mordecai told Esther to go to the king. You have got to go to the king, and you've got to tell him what's going on, and you've got to save our country. And Esther is concerned here. So this is what she's saying. She goes, all of the king's servants and people of the king's provinces know that any man or woman who goes into the inner courts of the king who has not been called, he has but one law, put all to death. In other words, you don't just go to the king, except the one to whom the king holds out the golden scepter, that he may live. Yet I myself have not been called. You have to wonder what the cycle was for the king. All these concubines, you just wonder what the cycle was, because she says, I myself have not been called to go into the king these 30 days. In other words, she had not seen him for 30 days. It's just so odd to think of a king and a queen. So they told Mordecai Esther's words. And Mordecai told them to answer Esther, do not think in your heart that you will escape in the king's palace any more than all the other Jews. So he's saying, no matter who you are in the palace, you're going to die too, Esther, because they're going to find out you're a Jew. And so this is where we're going with this. It says, for if you remain completely silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise for the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. Yet who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this? If I could have a bracelet made, and I just put this at the top of my notes, it would be FSATAT. I thought, we have that WWJD, what would Jesus do? But I would like to have a bracelet, I don't know, something. And in fact, if I would have been given this message a little earlier for me to plan, all of you cutting vinyl would have been cutting these letters out, so I'm just warning you, we may have to do that. But you know, I think if all of us wore something that said FSATAT for such a time as this, we have such a powerful weapon against Satan. Why are you here? What good do you think you're doing anybody? You're a failure. You did this. And he just points fingers at us. Do you think Esther probably thought, why am I here? I'm in a foreign country. I don't know why, but I picture her as being very timid, very quiet, beautiful, not even recognizing her own beauty. Just like you all. Many times we allow Satan to beat the tar out of us. All the time, being such beautiful, precious jewels to the Lord, and we don't even realize it. And I do believe that's what Esther, how she was. I think she was just quiet-natured. But anyway, Mordecai's telling her, if you think you're going to escape this, Esther, you're going to be found out and you're going to die. You tell him you die, you don't tell him you die. You're going to die. So again, it says, Esther told them to reply to Mordecai, go gather all the Jews who are present in Shushan and fast for me. Again, I told you God was never mentioned. It doesn't even say fast and pray. But I can assure you if they were fasting, they were praying. And it says, neither eat nor drink for 3 days, night or day. And listen to this. My maids and I will fast likewise. Where do you think her maids came from? Were they other Jewish girls? Were they Persian girls? Because evidently she had formed quite a relationship. It says they were going to fast with her. Do you see this beautiful woman going into this palace and really probably not needing a lot of beautification? But she's making connections with people. She's becoming friends, and she has relationships with these girls who are considered her maids. And they actually fasted and prayed along with her. And it says, and so I will go to the king, which is against the law, and it says, if I perish, I perish. The mindset of her should be the mindset in each one of us. But I'm going to tell you, when I say that, I'm kind of like Eden said a while ago, you know, a lot of times I'm telling you what I need to do more of. But can you imagine the boldness of saying, I'm going, and if I die, I die. Because I'm going to stand up for what is right for my people. I've thought so much about this, and like I said, when I first started, kind of studying this, I was a little bit tiffed at Mordecai. I was like, was he using her? Because, he sounded like he had some power. And I thought, did he push her to go so maybe he could find more favor in the king's eyes? I don't know what his motive was. But what I do know is God used that to save the Jewish people. If you go ahead and read the rest of the story, she went to the king. He loved her so much. He extended the scepter, had her come in. What did you want? And what's really interesting, instead of telling him, I want you to go do this, she said, I want to throw a big celebration for Haman. Of course, he doesn't realize she's a Jew, and he's like, well, that's really nice of you to do. So he does. They have Haman come in, and at the table he said, what do you want? And she said, I think I want Haman to come back again tomorrow night. This is just an odd story to me. I hope you'll read it. But anyway, that night, they go to try to sleep. Haman sleeps great. He's thinking, man, I get another date with the king and queen all by myself. But Xerxes could not sleep. So guess what he did? He called for the royal records to be read. I mean, some of us count sheep. No, he wants the royal records to be read to him. And here's what's interesting about the Persian people. They were meticulous about keeping records. Well, they bring in the royal records, and he's trying to sleep. And so they begin to read to him. And guess what they read? The man Mordecai saved your life back in such and such time. And when that was read, he was like, well, what did they do for him? He should have been recognized. And they said, we didn't do anything. Well, okay, call Haman. Haman comes in, and he says, Haman, what would you do for a person who did something really special for you? And he said, I would give him the best horse that you used to ride on. I'd give him all these things of yours. I mean, Haman was thinking, he is fixing to set me up. So he said, great, go call Mordecai. And we are are going to give him the royal treatment. And you know what? Haman had to leave the parade for Mordecai's, this big party they threw for him. And all the time Haman was looking for a way to hang Mordecai, and he ended up getting hung on the same gallows that he wanted to hang Mordecai on. This is such a lesson to all of us, and this has nothing to do with my notes. I wouldn't even know where to start with my notes. But I'm just saying, all this last week, I have just questioned the Lord, why? And again, he said, for such a time as this. I don't know what Mordecai's motives were, but God saw through time, and he knew there was going to be a time his people, once again, were in a foreign land, about to be annihilated, and he needed somebody to step up. So my challenge to all of you all is you are going to have, for such a time as this moment, you may have several. The Lord has made us fearfully and wonderfully. He's got a call on each and every one of us. But I've asked myself, and I really have, Lord, am I doing enough? Am I doing what you want me to do? Am I willing to say, I'm going to do this, and if I die, I die? That's hard. Sometimes we even find difficulty standing for the Lord in the teacher's lounge. That's just where I'm at. Maybe that's not where you are. But there are many times that I just find it hard. I just kind of just move on, and I don't say a whole lot. Why do you think our country's in the mess it's in? The church. I'm just going to tell you all, it's the church's fault. Why have we not stood up and taken a stand? And Rex and I have talked about this so many times. Where do we start? What should we do? And every single time the answer is pray. What did Esther do? The first thing she did was she told them, this is what I'm going to do. I want everybody to pray. We've got a lot of people in this United States of America that we are in trouble. Our country is in such a mess. As Christians, you know what we need to be doing? Praying. We may be called upon to step up and actually take a stand and lose our life. I don't know. But I know that the Lord showed me so clearly. Sometimes, Jana, you get really comfortable where you're at. And it's just easier to stay comfortable. It's just easier to be passive and let things happen rather than taking a stand. So my challenge to all of you all is to pray. Lord, when my moment comes, because we are all here for a reason. Every single one of us, the Lord created for a reason. Some of you all, you can look into your past and you're like, I know when that was. I had to do this, I had to do that. And again, I'm not saying it's just one thing. But I think very clearly, we see many times, usually in the rearview mirror, after we've already kind of gone through it, wow, I see what the Lord did in that. And we also see our failures and see the mirror. Yeah, that's right where the Lord is trying to get us to not see us. When we look in the mirror, if you see you, you're in big trouble. When we look in the mirror, we should be seeing us being transformed from glory to glory into the image of the Lord. When you look in the mirror, do you criticize yourself? Do you, look at all the things I need to change? Or do you say, Lord, what can you do with this? I'm willing, I'm going to step up and just say, I'll do it, but Lord, what can you possibly do with this? And you know what? Before you know it, I've heard different ones say, I think Eden and Lindsay both said, they're not the same person they used to be. When you go through difficulties, I guarantee you, you're transformed one way or another. You become bitter or you become better. That's the truth. You become bitter or you become better. And I can honestly say the difficulties that I've been through have made me a better person. I didn't realize it sometimes at the time. But when I have gone through difficult times, I look back and I think I am not the same person. I'm so thankful. No, not any credit to me. It's all glory to God because I am better. Not that I am where I need to be. But I am saying I'm better because of the things I've had to go through, the lessons I've had to learn the hard way. hard-headed, and I can only imagine what the Lord must be saying up there sometimes about me. Did you not get it the first time? Let's go back around. Let's try this again. And He will. That's right. Until we pass the test, we will go back around that mountain. I think Joyce Myers is one that always says that so funny. She's so cute. But the thing about it is, we've got to realize that we're here for a reason, for such a time as this. I do think I need to get bracelets made, because I think, sometimes I need to look at that in the middle of a situation, because I say, what in the world, Lord? How did I get here? What in the world are we trying to do here? Even as a pastor's wife, sometimes I've said that to the Lord. What am I doing here? What am I trying to do? Lord, what are you wanting to do through me? Because I don't think I get it. I'm not the person for the job, Edie. I'm not the person to speak. I'm not the person to go and talk to a coworker. I'm not that person. You need to talk. You need to get somebody else. Haven't we all been there? What do you think about? I think of Esther being just kind of rounded up like a cattle. And here's the thing. If she did not please the king, guess where she would have ended up? Yeah, in the royal harem. She would have been a broodmare. That's what they were. All the concubines, that's what they did. They multiplied the kingdom. And I just think, again, I'm sure she was so scared. But I also don't think she had to put forth a lot of effort. I think she saw herself for who she was, didn't even realize the beauty she had. But yet she began to rise in the kingdom based on her beauty and her charm. Again, and then God used that to save the children of Israel. So that is all I want to do. I want to challenge you to think about your life. And maybe you've not experienced that yet. And again, it's going to be different for all of us. But you have been born for such a time as this. I have even asked the Lord, I think you put me like maybe in the wrong time period. I don't think that I'm made for this time period. But you know what? Rex preached a message one time about how God saves the best of the best for last. Whenever you are in a ball game, and this is his message, I think it was Rex or Aaron won. But when you're waiting for that fourth quarter and you're bringing it in, you put those star players back in to bring it home. And you know what, guys? Girls, we should be so honored that we are living at such a time as this. I truly believe we are the ones who are going to usher in the return of the Lord. I believe that. Are we acting like it? Are we living like it? Because again, there was such they were just so, they had to act right then. There was no time to waste. And I'm going to tell you something, read it. Esther was not that shy young girl that whenever she went back to the court the second time for the dinner with Haman, she was bold. And she told him, this is what I want. The king did it. He acted on it. And guess what? Again, that saved the children of Israel. We have a country to save. I believe that. I believe we have a country to save. And I ask myself just about every day, Lord, what do I do? This is not the world I wanted for my kids and my grandkids. I wanted them to enjoy the things that I had been able to enjoy. And the thing, again, continues to come back. Pray. I feel helpless. But prayer is what changes things. And right there, it shows us. Prayer changes things. Because that's the first thing Esther did. So all of you all, I feel, are Esthers. All of you all are where maybe you walk into your workplace every day and just think, why am I here, God? Okay, what do you want? Because I'm just not seeing it. Maybe you're not happy. You know what? I don't think that Esther was happy. No. I don't think she enjoyed the things she had to go through. But when she began to realize, okay, wait a minute. Now I'm seeing why I'm here. I'm getting it. I think all of a sudden that's when the boldness came in, because she recognized, okay, God, I'm here. I'll do what you ask me to do. And if I have to die for you, I'm going to die for you. And I truly believe that's where we are as a country. Are we bold enough to say, Lord, use me. However you want to use me, if I die, I die. Because I'm going to tell you this week, first I've had to preach this message to myself. And it's hard to say that. You all of a sudden start having some fear about some things. You all of a sudden start making excuses. It's not me. And I think if you would go back and just, maybe we'll get to discuss it with her one day. I hope we all do. If you're not ready, please tell me, and I mean that, because really, we need to get our lives ready. But I hope we can discuss with her one day. How did you feel? I'm sure you were scared to death. And again, by both of these girls, I recognize the feelings they have, you all, and many of you in this audience have experienced the very things they've gone through, the way they feel. We feel we've gone through things like that. So I think, too, we need to be letting people know you're not alone in that, the way you feel. What's wrong with me, Lord? Is it me? We all do that. We look in the mirror and we judge ourselves and we criticize and we compare. When God says, all I want you to do is look in that mirror and see me. Because if you see me, you're going to become more and more like I would be. If you see you, you're going to become more and more like the world. And that is not what God wants right now. So, again, I just want us to think about this story. Please read it. It's just, how many of y'all remember the Harlequin romances? I know I'm dating myself here. Anybody remember those? Okay, well, back in my day, Mother would have just jumped all over me if she knew I read that trash, and that really it was. But it's so funny how, back in my day, that's what it was, the Harlequin romances. You need to read the book of Esther. You need to read some of those other books in the Bible, because let me tell you, they're interesting, they will intrigue you. But I thought, isn't it interesting what a young virgin girl in a foreign country did? And sometimes we make excuses and say, God, it's not me. I don't think I can do it, and I'm not trying to get onto you, Eden, because I felt the very same way. But isn't it the truth? We all say that. We all go through those feelings. You're wanting me to do what? Oh, God, not me. Call Victoria. She's much better at that. We do that. But today I want us to just think about that bracelet. So maybe you just need to go ahead and get your little something and write that on there. We should have, like I said, I wasn't even thinking about doing that for the mirrors, but we need to write those initials for such a time as this, because you're here. Whether you want to be or not, you're here for such a time as this. Why wouldn't we want to make, the biggest impact we can make while we're here, this short time? Think about how fast these years are going. Where did 2020 go? It was a bad year, but it went so fast. It should have just drug. We were all stuck at home more, and oh my word, it went so fast. 2021, look where we are now. We're almost in May. Time is going so fast, and we are here for such a short time. So be an Esther. That's my challenge to all of you. Be an Esther. Ask yourself, Lord, what is it you're preparing me for? Because all those years, the Lord was preparing her. For whatever reason, kept her in Persia when she could have went home. Of course, I think it was like 50 years before that, so she wasn't even born yet. But the situation there, and I want to say one more thing. They said that Esther's parents were most likely killed by the Persians. She was orphaned because of this country she was in. Their people killed her parents. So, she could be very bitter. No, I don't want anything to do with this mess. But again, she was probably forced into it. And she ended up being one of the most heroic persons in the Bible. So we're going to stand, and I know that we've kind of ran over, and I am sorry for that, but I appreciate all of you. I know that, I know you've got things to do, and I understand that, but thanks for hanging in there. But ask yourself, Lord, am I an Esther? What is it you're preparing me to do, and then help me to step into that role boldly? I also want to say, for a while she had to hide her identity. And, I'm going to say for all of us who have gone through the pandemic, the masks hide. I go right past people sometimes at Walmart or whatever, and they're like, Jana, oh my word, I'm so sorry, I didn't recognize you. Again, let's ask ourselves. That's what Satan wants to do to us all the time, not just for a year's time. He wants us to stay masked, hiding our identity in Christ. He doesn't want us to recognize who we are as women. He doesn't want us to recognize the power that we have through Christ. Ask yourself this question: what am I supposed to do? Prepare me, Lord. And you know what? Sometimes the preparation's hard. Sometimes it's not fun. But when you step into that moment, and I know some of you have kind of smiled, I know you know. There are things you've gone through that you're like, this is one of the reasons I know I'm here. You know, again, maybe it's to support a husband. Maybe it's to, or not, and I don't mean support him like you're the only one making any income. We're talking about being a supportive wife and helping your husband. Maybe it's you in your workplace. You know, being a light in such a dark place. Maybe it's for you raising children. Oh my goodness. You know, yes, I know it's hard. But on the other hand, my goodness, God, that's right where God wants you, is to, you know, take care of your family. I don't know, but I just know the Lord has really put on my heart to get out of our comfort zone. Stop being comfortable in the world. That's not your home. But He has us here for a time to do something for Him. And again, you know, we think of greatness as saving the Jews. Greatness is anything He calls you to do every single day. Even getting up and being faithful to a job. Even getting up and cooking breakfast for your family. Even whatever it is, you know, do it as an Esther. This is what God's called me to do, and I'm going to do the very best I can. That's what I believe He's saying to all of us today. Let's be like Esther. And you know, again, right now, I believe that we're here for our country. I believe we are here to pray for our country. So please, if nothing else, let's all join together and pray for our country. But pray for one another. You know, I've enjoyed our time together. I know, so it just seems like it goes so fast. But I've enjoyed our time together because even if you're not from our church, I love seeing it. I just love seeing you. You know what? Other churches are thriving. This is what we all need to be doing in our own churches, thriving. We need to be faithful. We need to support the community. All of these things that I believe God, and you know, as women, we are caretakers. And you know, that's something I think that, you know, naturally we just kind of look for the need and we go toward that. So let's take it upon ourselves to look for the need. You don't have to look very far. You can drive up to a stop sign and there they are. You can walk through Walmart and they're right there staring back at you. There's needs, big needs. And we may not be able to meet the financial need, the whatever it is, but we can pray. And so that's what we all need to be doing. If you can't do other things, man, all of us can pray. So let's do that. We're going to be dismissed. And again, thank you all so much. If you brought food, be sure and take what you've got, whatever was in your containers.